So I'm in this meeting, and Cheryl Price gets up in the meeting, and she starts singing this song and prophesying in a really powerful way. And it's a song by a guy named Curtis Mayfield. And I'm going to ask the video people to put up the lyrics to this song. But before I read them, I want to tell you this. Sometimes we walk into prophetic moments, and as she's doing this, I'm hearing the weight of what she's saying. And I feel like this is not just some rendition of the song that was popular in the 60s and 70s. This is a prophetic word for the church. And the first line of this song is, it's for us right now. It's people get ready. Now, I don't want to overstate or exaggerate anything, but I want to sure land on the thing that God is saying, and we need to get ready. There's something that's afoot in the kingdom of God, and I think that in this place there's enough of the Spirit of God within all of us that bears witness to something that God is speaking. And I believe that what we're doing is articulating something that has already been spoken into the heart of God's people. We need to prepare for this hour that we're walking into. And get this phrase, time is of the essence. We don't have time to dilly-dally around. Now, later on in this message, I'm going to quote from some of the inaugural address. And one of the things that Donald Trump said, which I believe is prophetic, is the time for empty talk is now over. Now is the time for action. And so we can't afford not to hear and get this word. And I do believe that God is looking for fertile soil for this word to land upon. And then it goes on like this. There's a train a-coming. Now, several years ago, and so as she's saying this, there are a whole array of things that are flashing through my mind. I did believe, and I still do believe, that this is a word that needs to be spoken not only to MorningStar, but it needs to be spoken to the church at large. And that we are in this season of time where we have a fraction or a phrase of time or a period of time in which we can respond to this word, but this door will not always remain opened. And so we're entering a season of God training people for that which is on the way. And there's this whole phrase about a train a-coming. This represented to me something that happened here at MorningStar during one of what we had called our solemn assemblies. And I remember very distinctly that it was from the 4 p.m. to the 6 p.m. Session of time, and I was asked to oversee that. And about 20 minutes into this, and I asked in the first service who was in this. This was several years ago. I felt like the Lord was encouraging me to get up to do something that I didn't understand. And so I did that, and I'm going to talk about what happened afterwards. So I'm getting this phrase in my mind, and sometimes when you obey the Lord, as you're doing something, you understand it. And so I got up, and there were honestly probably about 150 people in the room. It was pretty well attended solemn assembly time. And I said this, all aboard, all aboard, all aboard, all aboard. And As I'm saying it, I have no understanding of what I'm talking about. But I will tell you, there was a response in the room that to me was somewhat encouraging, because people started running around like something just had happened that was significant. And it did change the tone and the atmosphere of the prayer meeting, but I wasn't sure what all of that meant. 2 days later, I get a phone call from a pastor that's in our network. He's on the West Coast. His name is Jim Moore. And he begins to, he said, I need to talk to you. He said, I had an experience on a train and I need to convey what happened. And so he said, but before I tell you what this experience really was, I need to give you a little history to this. And so he began to rehearse to me some of the history of what he was about ready to explain. And he said, about 18 months ago, I was in our prayer room. He has what's called the Salem House of Prayer. It's a 24/7 group of people that gather on a regular basis. And I will tell you this guy has a lot of credibility with me. I've tracked their history. I've been to their church many times. And I've watched what they have done from their infancy, and it had grown into a pretty significant thing. I've watched the hand and the favor of God upon helping them in a whole array of things. One of the things that I was well aware of is the place that they started in was right adjacent. They shared a common wall with a bar. And on Friday and Saturday nights, the reverberation from the music in the bar would bleed into their prayer room. And they prayed for this bar and its owner for a couple years. And at the end of their prayer time, this owner actually took his own life. But they wound up with the property, the barroom property, and they converted into this magnificent prayer room and meeting place and everything else. And they found out after they had done this that this place, this bar room, was actually one of the headquarters for sex trafficking on the West Coast. And it's a much longer story, much more involved than all of that. But I'm aware of all of that as he's calling me. And so this man has done a lot for the kingdom of God and highly prophetic. And he said, here's the background to what I'm about to tell you. He said, I was in the prayer room. And as I'm in the prayer room, I get a phone call that's a pocket dial, or some people call it a butt dial. He sat on his phone, but he said, I looked on the phone and there was no caller ID on it. I didn't answer it, but there was a message that was recorded. And so after he got out of the prayer room, he listened to the message and he could tell that somebody had inadvertently called him. And he's listening, and in the background, there's a conductor that is making an announcement, and this is how the announcement goes. There's been a slight delay. We're about ready to pull into the city of Salem. All of you that are in the observation deck need to now find your seat of assignment. And here's what happened. He said, as I'm listening to this announcement, he said, I have been praying for direction for our ministry for the last 18 months. And I knew that this was God prophetically speaking to me about our staff and about the people that were associated with us, that they no longer could continue to observe what was going on. They needed to find out where they belong.